For 5 decades, Jackson Jantzen has been serving in the role as a human being in this massively messed up group project we were born into, known as humanity. 6 years ago, a lifelong observation process turned into intensive personal focus and healing journey to better understand his role and personal responsibility in cultivating more conscious moments of connection and community. Some of you may remember Jackson Jantzen. He was a member of our fellowship and spoke to us several years ago about his journey. It is just a delight for me to have Jackson back here. He's a special man. So welcome back, Jackson. It is wonderful to have you join us this morning.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I'm hoping that everybody can bear with me. It's been a lot of years since I've had to speak publicly, and the nerves have not left me. I think they've magnified, actually. So, courage, I heard, was the topic this month, and it's one of those words that was a meditation for me while I lived in La Crosse. My whole life has been a live-long learning process for me. I've come in the last few years to realize that the way that my brain and body are wired is not typical for the ways that our society is structured. And I came in feeling this world way before I ever saw it coming. And so I am working to give my version of my vulnerability to you in hopes that you can hear my story and not see me in my story, but hopefully see your experience and your process of being human in this world, in this humanity, and trying to figure out a way to be more conscious in that. For me, this experience of life on my end of it is this continual process of trying to put the Dalai Lama forward, but who most often shows up is Sheldon Cooper. Although, yeah, if you're not a Big Bang Theory fan, look him up. For me, though, I can't say it's Sheldon Cooper for certain because my mother never had me test it. So, a Sheldon joke. It's this hard thing to be in the world and to want to bring something different than the world that you were born into. And it hit me very hard when I heard your covenant. With trust, respect, and compassion, we strive to listen deeply, communicate clearly, and act with love towards one another, our community, and the world. That's great when it feeds our egos. That's great when we're telling ourselves we're a good person and this is who we want to be. But what does that mean in any given moment? Every one of our days is filled with these seconds that add up and these experiences that add up and create these weights that we have to carry throughout our lives. And when I went into my healing, I had to decide who I needed to be and who I wanted to be in the world. And there's a few moments that kept coming up that were these seeds of experience that gave me stories of both villains and superheroes, and all of the characters in it taught me something and made me a better person about myself, better person for myself and for the world around me. The first one was when I was a kid. It actually helped me. It was a seed that was planted, and it helped me orient the way that I experienced the world. I was a fan of Three's Company. It was the sitcom that ran for a number of years. And as you know, sitcoms are this space where there's always some version of confusion that creates funny. And they had this special on where Lucille Ball was hosting it. And she was talking about the arc of a moment in comedy. And she showed this scene where you have all of these great actors playing out this scene of dysfunction and confusion. But there's always a butt of a joke, and there's always pain before the punchline. And even though my little body was processing this, yeah, that's funny, and that's a great method and everything, all I could focus on was the pain. And it gave me this seed that I didn't even realize was planted for these moments of seeing and experiencing the pain first, and then trying to figure out how to be part of a process in stopping that version of pain, either for myself or somebody else. Well, we cascade through life, and we experience life, and we experience these messages that are dehumanizing to ourselves. they're rooted as soon as we get into the world in our gender and makeup, and how we're told to assimilate to a society and perform in society, no matter how much that denigrates our soul. And from that place moving forward, we're continually delivered those messages in every layer of our societal structure as to how to assimilate to a broken society versus how to be more conscious in it. So over my life, I got kicked around. We all get kicked around, and we learn the lessons and try to figure out pieces that will help us do it better in the future. And for me, if you don't know my story, I was assimilated into a world where I was born into the world female embodied. I was told all the ways that I wasn't valued because I was female. I was told all the ways I wasn't valued because I was gender nonconforming. I was told all of the ways I wasn't valued because of the ways that I loved. And then it continued through that when I realized that I needed to transition. I was confronted with a lot of dehumanizing attitudes and ideas as to what I needed to do or who I needed to be in order to be male. So the flip of the gender on that. Throughout the phase of our lives, like in my 20s, I came out in my early 20s, and I grew up in Texas and came out in California. And then I ended up moving from California almost as soon as I came out and moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, and spent nearly a decade there, where I got to spend days, every one of my days, with all of these moments, navigating a world and society that wanted to continually ask me to own these judgments of myself, but then me trying to figure out how to do different, be different, and it was an incredible training ground that took me to my 30s, where I had a job. I moved to California and had a job opportunity where I was interviewing with a company, and I met this manager who was in this small trucking company. She had taken the job 6 months earlier. She was from a massive call center, and she was really wanting to do some good stuff. And she saw me. She was one of the very first employers I had who, when she saw me, she like lit up. She knew what I was going to bring, what I could bring to the table. And I had somebody immediately who wanted to invest in me, who saw the value that I had and was like, I want you here, and I want you part of my team and part of my collective. When I got the job from her, like we went through the interview process, and I left there, I felt really good. I could tell that she was really excited about me. And a few days later, I got a job interview from her, or an offer from her. And she reached out and she's like, I want to offer you the job, and I'm really excited about having you here, but there's something I need you to know. She's like, as soon as you left the office and I walked you outside, I returned to my office, and one of my employees walked in and entered my door and said, laughing, "You're not going to hire that dyke, are you?" She's like, she says, I need you to know what happened forward, and I need you to know all of this so that if you take the job, you know what you're walking into. To give you context, this woman was a 45, 46-year-old Latina female, femme lesbian, who was not out. She had just taken this job, just moved to California a couple of years earlier. And when she saw me and saw what I could bring, and had this employee act this way, she went to the president of the company and said, this is not okay behavior for me. This is not acceptable. And I'm a lesbian. And if we're going to have this kind of environment, I can't work here. I don't know what it is to tell you to go through a life where you're continually having to fight just to have a presence, have somebody put themselves on the line for you before you've given them any use value, and have them set a tone for behavior. And I wanted the job anyway, but when she did that, I was like, I have to take this. And I have to show up for her. and I had a week to think about how I wanted to walk in there and who I wanted to be when I walked in those doors. And I had to think. It was the very first time that I had to take it to that next level of consciousness and really be like, I'm showing up not only for myself, but for this other person and for the people that I'm going to be working with in a different kind of a way. And I had to go into that space, and I opted to go in acting as though I didn't know what had happened. And 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 I ramped it up. I'm good when I first come into a job anyway. I'm really trying to bust butt. But in that moment, I'm like, I am gonna make her look so good for this hire. And really brought that place of I'm gonna show you respect and show myself respect at the same time. And just I had to work hard to bring that in every day. And it's not this patting on the back thing that I'm telling this story, because what taught me in this is I I came into the first day, and the person who was the one that walked into her door calling me the dyke, she is the one that they partnered me with to train. And I worked with this woman side by side for a week. And even in the first day, I could see that, I could feel that energetic disposition changing. And by the end of that week, she was the one to drive me back to my hotel so that I could go back, to my 2 hour, to San Diego, 2 hours away the next day. And at the end of that week, and at the end, when she got back to the hotel, she parked the car and she's like, there's something I need to tell you. And she said, I had some perceptions about you, and she listed them. It was a level of vulnerability and personal ownership of behavior that I've seen from very few human beings. And she said, I was so wrong, and I'm really sorry. And it was a blip on the radar at the moment for me. It was like, for me, it was like a lesson learned. I did something, and I knew that in that moment I had changed something. But she was probably the 100th person in my life who taught me that those moments matter. And she became this massive, fierce advocate for me when I needed another job a couple of years down the line. So when I came into the community of lacrosse and I was trying to decide who I needed to be when I was doing my activism or my relationship to trying to change the world, she is the person that sat with me every day when I had to go into those spaces of hard individuals or hard experiences and moments, and trying to be like, who am I going to be, and how am I going to be here differently? And the place that broke me, but the place in the moment that broke me wasn't in doing that work, but it was in seeking support while doing that work. And I had been a few years into the role and getting kind of burned out, because it's hard giving yourself up into a world that is broken and perpetuating the brokenness. And I found myself in this serendipitously. I found Spirit picked me up and decided I was going to go to this conference called Creating Change. A week before the conference, I ran into somebody who's like, you need to go to this. Here's a plane ticket. Here's a hotel room, go. And I was so thankful, because it was this executive director boot camp at the beginning. So I got these amazing skills, but then there was 2 experiences that changed my life in that. And I don't know how to explain. This is a conference where people who have very little scrape together as much as they can to get themselves to this destination, where you have this group en masse who, in variety of ways, shapes, and forms, are doing all that they can do in their lives to change the worlds around them. And they're coming to this conference that's called Creating Change, right? And they have keynote speakers over the weekends. And the first weekend, the first night was a Friday night, and the keynote speakers that they had that night, there was a protest that broke that up. And it was this group of trans activists who took over the stage for a chunk of time. And the ways that they engaged were so helpful, and they were basically like, we are here, we are dying, we need positions of leadership. And that moment in those people and how they were coming to us and to me and asking to be visible, to be seen and be partnered, it made me check every version of my privilege, of my consciousness, of my relationship to things, and sat me going, I have to do more work when I leave here. And they were such profound teachers. And then the next night, there was another keynote speaker, and then there was another protest. But this group of protesters came in with a different energy, and they were incredibly angry. And I fully get it, because all of us are getting the shit kicked out of us in this world. And when we finally get that moment where we have the people in front of us who can hold the anger for us, we tend to unleash it, and they have to deal with it versus, being able to be present and creating something. And so I sat in this audience watching kind of the polar opposite of the same people wanting the exact same experience, but creating this environment of basically saying fuck you to everybody in the space, and then driving a lot of the people away. And I just remember sitting there in that observer mode, trying to sit there going, okay, what's about me and what's about the situation, and what do I need to learn in all of it? And it took me a couple of years to unpack that. And it was the most beautiful gift, because that was given to me before 2016 ever arrived. And it made me look at all of the moments in 2016 that broke me. And it made me look at the human beings that were creating that and driving that. But then it made me change and look at the reflection of myself, my anger. How much in every moment, if I'm asking somebody to hold my anger or my pain about an issue, what is that doing to actually create a solution? What is that doing to actually create change? What is that doing to actually change the world, to create any healing? And so I guess my relationship to this, and just what I wanted to share is I'm very much appreciative of spaces like this, when we say, with trust, respect, compassion, we strive to listen deeply, communicate clearly, and act with love towards one another, our community, and the world. That is a beautiful sentiment. And how do we do that in any given moment? How are we bringing that forward? And how are we untangling ourselves from the false sacreds that we've been told to value and hold on to, or the pains and the traumas that keep us from being able to do that in any given moment? And so I wanted to share with you some of my journey and some of what caused me to hit that place in myself, where when 2016, 2017 happened, I realized what I'm doing is not working. I am participating in ways that I was socialized, but and rewarded for those, but those are not helping fight the fire. If we're socialized to carry flamethrowers and told that we're fighting fires, that doesn't do things for us, right? And so the only way that I knew how to not only experience for myself a different version of reality in the world, but do it for others, was to begin changing that part of myself and that relationship to myself. And then finally, I'm hoping now you guys are reaching me at this place in my life where I'm hoping to start, I'm not hoping, I'm changing my language. I'm going to begin starting inviting people into my space and creating spaces and asking people to co-create spaces with me, bringing in this level of consciousness in a moment where we're committed to sharing not only the vulnerability of ourselves, but honoring the vulnerability and experience of those in the space that are opposite of us, that we have no comprehension of understanding what has shaped their reality in living in this group project, right? So I so much appreciate you guys giving me this chance to chat with you, and I don't know how else to end it other than to say thank you.